The warning beacon screamed their message across 17 different frequencies. Captain Sarah Chen read the translations on her screen, each one basically saying the same thing. Stay away, death waits here. Do not enter. The maelstrom nexus stretched before them like a wound in space itself. Where normal space showed stars and the gentle glow of distant galaxies, this region twisted and writhed. Colors that shouldn't exist flickered and died. Light bent in impossible directions. Sometimes Chen could swear she saw pieces of ships, frozen in moments of destruction, appearing and vanishing like ghosts. 43 ships in the last 1,000 years, her science officer, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, said quietly. She stood beside Chen on the bridge of the UES Persistence, staring at the horror before them. Every species that tries to cross dies. The Zilani sent their best explorers, gone. The Kratham used unmanned drones. They dissolved into atoms. Chen nodded but didn't look away from the view screen. The human deep space survey vessel had been traveling for 3 years, mapping the outer regions of known space. They'd heard stories about the Maelstrom Nexus at every space station and trade port, the place where physics went insane, the graveyard of the brave and the stupid. The Galactic Council posted another warning last month. Her navigator, Lieutenant Marcus Torres, added, "They're considering expanding the quarantine zone by another 50 light-years." "Because they're afraid," Chen said. She turned to face her bridge crew. 12 humans, all volunteers, all a little crazy by galactic standards. Every species that's tried to enter has followed the same pattern. They trust their instruments. They rely on logic. They expect space to follow rules. "Space does follow rules," Dr. Tanaka said, though she smiled as she said it. "Just not in there." Chen walked to the central command chair and sat down. The Persistence wasn't the most advanced ship in space. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. Their technology was decades behind the Zilani, centuries behind the ancient Kratham, but humans had something else. "Pull up the incident reports," Chen ordered. The main screen split into dozens of smaller displays, each showing the final moments of ships that had tried to enter the Nexus. A Zilani science vessel, proud and gleaming, suddenly stretched like rubber before snapping back and exploding. A Kratham battlecruiser, the size of a small moon aged 1,000 years in seconds, rust and decay consuming it from within. A brave Pollux explorer, no bigger than the Persistence, simply stopped existing between one frame of video and the next. "Look at the pattern," Chen said. "Every ship enters at standard speed. Every ship maintains normal protocols. Every ship dies in the first 10 minutes. Because that's the smart thing to do," Torres said. "You don't rush into an anomaly." "No." Chen stood up again, energy filling her movements. "Because that's the logical thing to do. The Zilani are brilliant engineers. The Kratham are master physicists. The Pollux can calculate probability faster than any computer we've built. They all approached this problem the same way. And they all died," Dr. Tanaka finished. "The survivor reports from ships that turned back all say the same thing," Chen continued. "Their instruments went crazy. Time moved backward. Gravity pulled in multiple directions at once. One captain said he saw his ship exist in 12 places simultaneously." She paused, looking at each of her officers. These weren't military personnel. Earth's space program recruited differently than other species. While aliens chose their best and brightest, their most logical and controlled, humans picked volunteers who scored high in adaptability tests, people who could handle chaos. "What if the Nexus isn't broken?" Chen asked. "What if it just operates on different rules? Rules that change. Rules that contradict themselves." "That's insane," the engineering chief, Commander Ashley Park, said from her station. "You can't have contradicting physics in the same space, one, can't you?" Chen smiled. "Humans have been dealing with contradictions our whole existence. We hold multiple conflicting ideas in our heads all the time. We believe in science and still knock on wood for luck. We know our memories are flawed, but trust them anyway." The bridge fell silent. Outside, the Maelstrom Nexus continued its eternal dance of impossibility. A chunk of metal, maybe part of an old ship, appeared for 3 seconds before folding in on itself and vanishing. "You want to go in?" Dr. Tanaka said. It wasn't a question. "I want to try something different," Chen replied. "Every species has approached this as a problem to solve. What if it's not a problem? What if it's just different?" She brought up the human brain on the main screen. "We're the newest species in the Council. Everyone calls us primitive. Our brains are chaotic compared to theirs. We process fear and excitement in the same region. We can't even agree on what color something is half the time. Our perception of time speeds up and slows down based on our emotions. You think our chaos might help us in there, Torres said, understanding dawning in his eyes. I think our flexibility might let us bend instead of break, Chen corrected. Look at human history. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars that should have ended us, not because we're strong, but because we adapt. We change our entire worldview when we need to. Commander Park pulled up the Persistence's specifications. Our shields are nothing compared to that Kratham battlecruiser. Then we won't rely on shields, Chen said. We'll rely on instinct, human intuition, the ability to accept that sometimes up is down and down is sideways and both are true at the same time. The crew exchanged glances. Every one of them had scored in the top percentile for adaptability. They'd all passed psychological tests that would have failed most humans. They could handle stress that would break other species' minds. I need unanimous consent, Chen said. This isn't an order. This is a request. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to Station 7. No judgment. No shame. One by one, her officers straightened. Dr. Tanaka spoke first. I've spent my career studying things that shouldn't exist. This is the ultimate test. I joined space exploration to see impossible things, Torres added. This qualifies. Around the bridge, each crew member nodded or voiced their agreement. These weren't soldiers following orders. These were humans choosing to do what humans did best, something completely insane. Chen opened ship-wide communication. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to attempt entry into the Maelstrom Nexus. I won't lie to you. No one has ever survived going in there. But no one has ever tried it the human way either. We're going to trust our guts over our instruments. We're going to embrace the chaos instead of fighting it. If you want off this ship, now's the time. She waited. 5 minutes passed. Not a single request for shuttle departure came through. Well then, Chen said, sitting back in her chair, let's do something stupid. As the Persistence moved toward the boundary of the Nexus, the warning beacons grew louder. Automatic messages from the Galactic Council demanded they turn back. The ship's own computer posted alert after alert. Chen turned them all off. Trust your instincts, she told her crew. If something feels wrong, say it. If something feels right, even if it looks wrong, say that too. From here on, we're not flying by science. We're flying by human intuition. The boundary approached. That place where space stopped making sense. Where every other species had met their doom. The Persistence crossed the threshold and reality immediately began to scream. The first thing that hit them was the nausea. Every human on the Persistence doubled over as their stomachs tried to figure out which way was up. The ship's gravity generators were working perfectly, but their bodies didn't believe it. Marcus Torres gripped his console and forced himself to breathe through his nose. His eyes told him the bridge was spinning. His inner ear said it was perfectly still. Both were true. Don't fight it, Captain Chen managed to say through gritted teeth. Let it happen. Dr. Tanaka had already vomited into a waste bin she'd prepared earlier. She wiped her mouth and looked at her readings. The numbers on her screen kept changing, not updating with new data, but actually changing what they had been. A temperature reading that had said -40 now insisted it had always said +300. The computer's having a breakdown, she reported. It can't handle contradicting data streams. Then we stop relying on it, Chen said. She stood up, swaying slightly. The nausea was still there, but it was becoming background noise. Like living near a highway, eventually you stopped hearing the traffic. Torres, how does the helm feel? Torres had his hands on the manual control stick, something most ships didn't even have anymore. Like trying to steer through jelly that's also somehow water vapor, he said. But I can feel patterns. If I don't think about it too hard, my hands know where to go. That was the human advantage revealing itself. Other species had evolved to be logical, precise, efficient. Humans had evolved to survive. Their brains were messy things full of shortcuts and contradictions. They could believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. As one old Earth writer had said, engineering. Report, Chen called. Commander Park's voice came through the comm, along with the sound of someone laughing hysterically in the background. The engines are running at 30% and 200% simultaneously. Don't ask me how. I've got 3 engineers who say they can taste colors now, and one who swears he's existing in the past and present at the same time. But the ship's holding together. Chen nodded. She'd expected this. The Nexus wasn't just hard on ships. It was hard on minds. But human minds were already a little broken by galactic standards. They could bend further without snapping. I'm seeing things, Dr. Tanaka said quietly. She was staring at something that wasn't there. A ship, Zelani design. It's right there, but also it's not. I see it too, Chen said. And she did. A ghostly outline of a vessel that had died here centuries ago. It existed and didn't exist at the same time. Don't focus on it. Let your peripheral vision handle it. That was the trick they were learning. Direct observation in the Nexus was useless. But humans had evolved as persistence hunters on Earth. They could track prey for days using subtle signs and intuition. That same indirect awareness was keeping them alive now. Captain, Torres said suddenly, I need to turn left, hard left. Right now. Do it, Chen ordered without hesitation. Torres yanked the controls. The persistence groaned and twisted. A second later, the space where they had been suddenly aged 1,000,000 years. They watched the ghost image of their ship rust and decay into nothing. How did you know? Dr. Tanaka asked. Torres shrugged. My grandmother always said I had good instincts. Guess she was right. As they pushed deeper into the Nexus, the crew started adapting in ways that would have terrified other species. Engineers began predicting system failures before they happened, fixing things based on hunches. The medical team reported that crew members' brain activity was off the charts, creating new neural pathways at an impossible rate. We're evolving, Dr. Tanaka said, looking at the medical data. Not physically, not yet. But our brains are rewiring themselves. We're becoming something that can exist here. Chen felt it too. The constant headache from the first hour had faded. The nausea was completely gone. She could look at impossible geometry without her mind recoiling. When a corridor appeared to stretch infinitely while also being only 3 meters long, she simply accepted both realities. Other species can't do this, she realized out loud. Their brains are too organized, too efficient. They can't hold contradictions, but we can, Dr. Tanaka agreed. Humans have always been able to believe impossible things. We just never knew it was a survival trait. The persistence pushed on. They were now deeper into the Nexus than any ship had ever gone and survived. The space around them had given up any pretense of following normal physics. Time moved backward in some sections, forward in others. They passed through a pocket where gravity pulled in 7 directions at once. Through it all, the human crew adapted. When the light started showing colors that didn't exist, they learned to see them. When the computer reported that 2 + 2 = 5, they found ways to make it work. When some crew members reported existing in multiple locations at once, they used it to run more efficient shifts. This is impossible, Commander Park said over the comm, but she was laughing as she said it.
I'm watching an engine component be broken and functional at the same time.
And somehow it's working better than before, that was the key. Other species had tried to force the Nexus to make sense. They had tried to find the real rules underneath the chaos. But humans weren't trying to understand it. They were just accepting it, rolling with it, adapting to it. Captain, I'm detecting something, Dr. Tanaka said. Deep in the Nexus, it's structured, organized, but in a way that shouldn't be possible. Chen looked at the readings, then immediately looked away as her eyes started to water. How far? If distance has any meaning here, maybe another day's travel. But Torres might be able to feel a better route. Torres was already adjusting their course. His eyes were closed now. He wasn't flying by sight anymore. He was flying by instinct, by the feeling in his bones. There's a current, he said, like a river in the chaos. If we follow it, we'll get there faster. Then follow it, Chen ordered. As they moved deeper, the crew continued to change. Not just mentally now, but physically. Their pupils dilated and contracted independently, letting them see multiple light spectrums at once. Their heart rates became irregular, but in a pattern that somehow matched the Nexus's rhythm. They were becoming something new. We're not human anymore, one of the engineers said during a shift change. Not fully. We're still human, Chen corrected. We're just human plus. Human adapted. Human evolved. The Galactic Council would be horrified. They valued stability, predictability, order. But humans had never been about order. They'd always been about survival. And in the Maelstrom Nexus, survival meant becoming something that could thrive in chaos. I dreamed about this last night, Dr. Tanaka said suddenly. This exact moment. This exact conversation. But I also didn't dream it. Both are true, Chen nodded. That made perfect sense now. In the Nexus, cause and effect were suggestions, not rules. Dreams could be prophecies and memories at the same time. Whatever's at the center of this place, Chen said. It's been waiting. I can feel it. It's been waiting for someone who could reach it. Waiting for someone crazy enough to try, Torres added. Or flexible enough to succeed, Chen corrected. The Persistence continued its impossible journey. Its human crew becoming more impossible with every passing hour. They were doing what no other species could do. They were thriving in chaos. They were becoming chaos. And somewhere ahead, something ancient and powerful noticed their approach. The structure appeared gradually like a dream becoming solid. First, Torres felt it in his bones, a pull that had nothing to do with gravity. Then Dr. Tanaka's instruments started showing impossible readings of organized energy in a place where organization shouldn't exist. Finally, the entire crew of the Persistence saw it with their changed eyes. The Architect's forge hung in the heart of the Maelstrom Nexus like a spider in its web. It was massive beyond comprehension. Chen tried to estimate its size and gave up when her brain suggested it was both the size of a moon and the size of a marble, depending on how you looked at it. The structure itself hurt to perceive directly. It was built from materials that existed in more than 3 dimensions. Geometric shapes that human mathematics said couldn't exist spun slowly around a central core. Tubes and corridors connected sections that weren't physically near each other. It was architecture designed by a mind that didn't accept the limitations of normal space. "It's beautiful," someone whispered. Chen wasn't sure who. Maybe it was her. "It's pulling matter from somewhere else," Dr. Tanaka reported. Her voice was calm, but tears were running down her face. Not from sadness, but from the sheer impossibility of what she was seeing. Those tubes, they're reaching into parallel dimensions, pulling raw materials from universes where physics works differently. As they approached, something else became clear. Ships were being built here, but not normal ships. These vessels were being assembled from contradictions. A hull that was simultaneously there and not there. Engines that ran on principles that violated every law of thermodynamics. Weapons that fired before they were triggered. "My God," Commander Park breathed over the comm. "The technology here. We couldn't understand it in 1,000 years of study." "Not with normal minds," Chen agreed. But their minds weren't normal anymore. The Nexus had changed them, evolved them. She could look at the impossible ships and almost understand how they worked. A voice suddenly filled the bridge, not through the comm system but directly into their heads. It spoke in every human language at once, and somehow they understood it all. "Finally," the voice said. It sounded ancient, tired, but also excited. "Someone has passed the test." The view screen shimmered and something appeared on their bridge. Not physically. It existed in a way that bypassed physical reality. It was an intelligence, a consciousness that had taken visible form just so they could perceive it. It looked like a shifting geometric pattern that somehow conveyed the impression of a face. "I am the Guardian," it said. "I have waited so long. So very long." Chen stood up slowly. Her crew was frozen, staring at the impossible being before them. But Chen had always been good in crisis situations, even when the crisis violated the laws of reality. "You built this place," she said. It wasn't a question. "The architects built it," the Guardian corrected. "I merely maintain it, protect it, wait for the right species to find it." "The architects?" Dr. Tanaka asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. The Guardian's form shifted, showing them images that appeared directly in their minds. A species so advanced that they had transcended physical form billions of years ago. They had built the forge as a gift, a tool for younger species to use, but they had hidden it behind the Maelstrom Nexus, a test that would only allow the worthy to enter. 63 species have tried, the Guardian said. All failed. Their minds were too rigid, too locked into single realities. They couldn't adapt to the chaos. But you humans, you're different. "We're insane by galactic standards," Chen said with a slight smile. "No, you're flexible. Your minds can hold contradictions. You can believe impossible things. You can adapt to anything." That's what the architects were looking for, a species that could use their gifts without being destroyed by them. The Guardian gestured, and the bridge crew could suddenly see the full scope of the forge. Millions of construction bays, libraries of knowledge that contained the secrets of manipulating reality itself, technologies that could reshape matter at the quantum level, fold space like paper, create energy from nothing. "This is all yours now," the Guardian said. "Humanity has passed the test. You can have ships that exist in multiple dimensions, weapons that can defend against any threat, medical technology that can cure death itself. The power to travel between parallel universes. The crew was silent, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was being offered, but Chen's mind was working. She was still human enough to ask the important question. "What's the catch?" she asked. The Guardian's form shifted into what might have been a smile. "Clever, yes, there is a price. Not a catch, but a responsibility. This technology must be earned. Each piece must be understood, not just used, and—" The Guardian paused, and when it spoke again, its voice was serious. "The Nexus changes you. You felt it already. The longer you stay, the more you evolve. You become something between human and something else. You can still leave now, take some basic technologies with you, but if you stay long enough to truly understand the Forge, you can never fully go back to what you were." Chen looked at her crew. Dr. Tanaka was running calculations in her head, her eyes moving in patterns that tracked invisible equations. Torres was unconsciously moving his hands in dimensions that didn't exist in normal space. Commander Park was humming a tune that had notes between the notes, frequencies that normal human ears couldn't hear. They were already changed. The question was whether they would change more. "There's something else," the Guardian continued. "Other species will know you've succeeded where they failed. Some will want to trade for the technology, others will try to take it. Humanity will need to decide what to share and what to keep. You will become the gatekeepers of the impossible." "Can other species use the technology?" Dr. Tanaka asked. "If they haven't passed through the Nexus." "Some of it," the Guardian admitted. "The simpler things. But the true power of the Forge requires minds that can accept contradiction. Only those who pass through the Nexus and survive can fully understand what the architects left behind." Chen walked to the view screen, staring at the impossible structure before them. "You said we can leave with basic technologies. What counts as basic?" The Guardian gestured and information flowed into their minds. Propulsion systems that were centuries ahead of anything in the galaxy, shield generators that could withstand supernovas, medical scanners that could detect and cure diseases before symptoms appeared, communication devices that worked instantly across any distance. "Basic," the Guardian said, "by the architect's standards." "And if we stay?" Chen asked. "If we learn more?" More information flowed. Ships that could exist in multiple realities at once, making them effectively indestructible. Weapons that could disable entire fleets with a thought. The ability to create stable wormholes. Technology to terraform dead worlds in days instead of centuries. "The power to prevent stars from dying, Captain," Dr. Tanaka said quietly. "With this technology, humanity wouldn't just join the Galactic Council as equals. We'd surpass them. All of them." Chen nodded. She understood the weight of that. Humans were already viewed with suspicion by some species. Too aggressive, too unpredictable. If they emerged from the Nexus with godlike technology— "The architects believed in balance," the Guardian said, sensing her thoughts. "The technology comes with wisdom if you're willing to learn. The Forge doesn't just build ships. It teaches, it guides. It helps species evolve not just technologically but philosophically." "And you?" Chen asked. "What do you get out of this?" "I get to fulfill my purpose," the Guardian said simply. "I was created to wait, to guard, to guide. With humanity here, I can finally do what I was meant to do. Teach, share the architect's legacy." Chen turned to her crew. "We need to decide together. We can leave now with technologies that will advance humanity by centuries, or we stay. Learn more but change in ways we might not be able to predict or control." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Torres spoke up. "I can feel the Forge calling to me. It wants to teach me how to navigate between realities, how to pilot ships that exist in multiple dimensions. I want to learn." "The medical knowledge alone could save billions of lives," the ship's doctor added. "How can we walk away from that?" One by one, the crew voiced their thoughts. Some were excited by the possibilities. Others were frightened by the changes they were experiencing. But all of them understood the magnitude of the moment. "We're pioneers," Chen finally said. "We came out here to explore, to find the impossible. We found it. Now we have to decide if we're brave enough to embrace it." She looked at the Guardian. "If we stay, can others follow? Other humans? If they can survive the Nexus," the Guardian said, "it will always be a test. But yes, humanity can establish a presence here. Learn from the Forge. Become what the architects hoped someone would become." Chen made her decision. "Then we stay. At least some of us. We'll learn what we can, then send word back to Earth. Let humanity decide its own future." The Guardian's form brightened. Welcome, humans, to your inheritance. Welcome to the next stage of your evolution. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The humans had done the impossible. They had entered the Maelstrom Nexus and survived. More than survived, they had found something inside that changed everything. Captain Chen watched the chaos unfold on the communication screens. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session. The Zilani were demanding answers. The Kratham were mobilizing their fleet. The ancient Vorthak, who hadn't spoken in the Council for 300 years, had broken their silence to ask a single question. How? They're not happy, Dr. Tanaka observed. She was different now after 3 weeks in the forge. Her eyes could see in spectrums that didn't have names. Her mind could process mathematics that existed in theoretical dimensions. But she was still human enough to find the alien panic amusing. Of course they're not, Chen replied. We're the newcomers. The primitive species that just joined the galaxy. We're not supposed to succeed where they failed. The Persistence had become their embassy at the edge of the Nexus. Half the crew had stayed deeper inside, learning from the Guardian and the Forge. The other half maintained a position where they could still communicate with the outside galaxy, though the changes to their bodies and minds made even that challenging. Commander Park entered the bridge, and Chen had to adjust her perception to see her properly. Park existed in 3 dimensions at once now, a side effect of working directly with the Forge's engineering systems. It was disconcerting, but they were all getting used to impossible things. The Kratham fleet is approaching, Park reported. 300 ships. They're demanding we share the technology immediately. Of course they are, Chen sighed. On another screen, Earth's Emergency Council was in heated debate. Share the technology? Keep it secret? Something in between? A new window opened on the main screen. The imposing figure of Kratham Admiral Zex appeared. The Kratham were silicon-based life forms, living crystals that valued logic above all else. They had been the galaxy's technological leaders for millennia. Captain Chen? Admiral Zex's voice resonated like grinding stone. You will surrender the Nexus technology immediately. It is too dangerous for a young species to control. I'm sorry, Admiral, Chen replied calmly, but that's not possible. The technology isn't something that can be simply handed over. It requires adaptation, evolution, the kind of change that your species might not be able to undergo. That is for us to determine, Zex replied. Stand aside. We will enter the Nexus ourselves. Chen felt a cold dread. Admiral, please. The Nexus doesn't care about technology or shields. It's a test of mental flexibility. Your people's minds are too structured. You'll die. You assume your chaotic thought processes are superior. We will prove otherwise. The communication cut off. Chen immediately opened a channel to the Persistence crew still inside the forge. Marcus, we have a problem. The Kratham are going to try to force their way in. Torres's response came back distorted. He was so deep in the Nexus now that normal communication barely worked. They won't make it. The Guardian says their minds will shatter in the first zone. Can we stop them? We could try, but Captain... Torres paused. The Guardian says this might be necessary. The galaxy needs to understand that the Nexus can't be conquered with force or logic, only adapted to. Chen watched as the Kratham fleet approached the Nexus boundary. 300 of the most advanced ships in known space, weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand supernovas. None of it would matter. Open a channel to Admiral Zex, she ordered. One more time. The Admiral appeared on screen, his crystalline form radiating confidence. Admiral, I'm begging you, Chen said. Send one ship first, a volunteer crew. See what happens before you risk your entire fleet. Fear makes you weak, human. We are not afraid. It's not about fear. It's about understanding that some things can't be forced. The Nexus requires acceptance, not conquest. Enough. You will witness Kratham's superiority. The first Kratham ship entered the Nexus. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then its hull began to ripple like water. The crew watched in horror as the ship's structure tried to exist in multiple states at once. The Kratham mind, so logical and ordered, couldn't accept the contradictions, couldn't adapt. The ship screamed across all frequencies, a digital cry of confusion and terror. Then it shattered like glass, its pieces aging backwards and forwards simultaneously until nothing remained but quantum dust. Stop, Chen shouted at the screen. Pull back! But the Kratham were too proud, too certain of their superiority. A second ship entered, then a third. Each one lasted less time than the one before, as if the Nexus was learning how to destroy them more efficiently. Admiral Zex's image flickered. Even from outside the Nexus, watching his ships die was affecting him. "This is impossible," he said. "Our calculations were perfect." "That's the problem," Chen said sadly. "The Nexus doesn't follow calculations. It follows chaos, and chaos is something your species spent 1,000,000 years evolving away from." 20 Kratham ships were gone before the Admiral finally ordered a retreat. The remaining fleet pulled back, their perfect formation now ragged with fear and confusion. "You knew this would happen," Zex accused. "We tried to warn you. The Nexus isn't a challenge to overcome. It's a test to pass. And the test isn't about strength or intelligence. It's about flexibility, about being able to believe impossible things." The communication system lit up with incoming messages. The Zilani, having watched the Kratham fail, were demanding that humans share at least some technologies. The Pollux were offering trade agreements. The mysterious Yent were proposing an alliance. But there were also threats. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia didn't like being suddenly inferior to the newcomers. Some were calling for humanity to be expelled from the Galactic Council. Others were suggesting more violent solutions. "Captain," Dr. Tanaka said, "we're receiving a priority message from Earth." The face of Earth's president, Elena Rodriguez, appeared on a private channel. She looked tired but determined. "Captain Chen, the Council has made a decision. We're not sharing the core technologies. Not yet. But we're offering to ferry other species' materials through the Nexus to be enhanced by the Forge, under human supervision." Chen nodded. It was a smart compromise. Humanity would become the galaxy's essential middlemen, the only ones who could access the Forge's power. "There's more," Rodriguez continued. "We're sending a colony ship. Volunteers who've passed the same adaptability tests as your crew. If the Nexus is going to be humanity's advantage, we need a permanent presence there." "Understood, Madam President. But they need to know. They won't be fully human anymore when they arrive. The Nexus changes you. We know. They know. They're volunteering anyway. That's what humans do, isn't it? We adapt." After the President signed off, Chen turned to her bridge crew. They were all changed now. Park existed in multiple dimensions. Tanaka could see time as a physical dimension. Torres, still deep in the Forge, had reported that he could navigate through parallel universes. "We're not the same species that entered the Nexus," Chen said quietly. "No," Tanaka agreed. "We're something new. Something between human and something else. The question is," Park said, her multiple forms speaking in harmony, "are we still human enough to guide our species, or have we become too alien?" Chen didn't have an answer. But as she watched the Kratham fleet retreat and saw dozens of other species' ships gathering at a safe distance, she knew humanity's relationship with the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer the newcomers, the primitive species just learning to travel the stars. They were the guardians of impossible technology. The only species chaotic enough, flexible enough, insane enough to thrive where reality itself broke down. "The Guardian wants to speak with you." Torres's voice came through the comm, distorted but recognizable. "It says it's time to learn about the real purpose of the Forge." Chen looked at her crew. Each of them had a choice to make. Go deeper into the Nexus and change even more, or stay at the edge and try to bridge the gap between humanity and what they were becoming. "I'm going in," she decided. "The rest of you can—" "We're coming too," Tanaka interrupted. "We've come this far together." Park nodded, her multiple forms rippling with determination. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't get too alien to remember Earth." As the Persistence moved deeper into the Nexus, toward the Forge and revelations that would reshape their understanding of reality, Chen couldn't help but smile. They were doing what humans did best. They were adapting. 6 months had passed since humanity first entered the Maelstrom Nexus. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Where once a single human ship had dared the impossible, now hundreds of human vessels moved in and out of the Nexus like fishing boats in a harbor that only they could navigate. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Nexus Station 1, humanity's new outpost at the edge of chaos. She was different now. Her body could phase between dimensions when needed. Her mind could process information from multiple timelines simultaneously. But at her core, she was still human. Still Sarah Chen. That stubborn human identity was what let them survive the Nexus while others couldn't. The Zalani delegation is here, Dr. Tanaka announced, entering the room in her unique way. She didn't walk anymore. She folded space around herself, existing at point A and then simply being at point B. It was disconcerting for visitors but efficient. How many times is that now? Chen asked. 47th official request for full technology transfer. They're getting desperate, Chen nodded. The Zalani had been the galaxy's master engineers for 3,000 years. Now they were second best and they couldn't stand it. But every attempt to enter the Nexus themselves had ended in disaster. Their minds were too ordered, too reliant on consistent reality. The delegation entered, led by Master Engineer Thylix. The Zalani were tall, graceful beings with 6 arms and minds like supercomputers. Thylix's usual composure was frayed. Chen could see it in the way his lower arms twitched. Captain Chen, Thylix began without preamble, the situation is becoming untenable. The Vorthak are threatening to leave the Galactic Council if humanity doesn't share the dimensional shift technology. The Kratham are building weapons specifically designed to destroy human ships. Those weapons won't work, Chen said calmly. Our ships don't exist entirely in one dimension anymore. You can't destroy something that's only partially there. That's exactly the problem. Thylix's composure finally broke. You've made every military force in the galaxy obsolete. Every trade route irrelevant. Why should ships take weeks to travel between stars when human vessels can fold space? Chen walked to the window, looking out at the swirling chaos of the Nexus. She could see things in there now that would have driven her insane 6 months ago. Ships being built from quantum probability, structures that existed backwards in time, the Forge working its impossible magic. We've made the same offer to everyone, she said. Send us your materials, your designs, your requests. We'll take them into the Forge. We'll improve them. But we can't teach you to survive the Nexus. Your minds aren't built for it. Then change our minds, Thylix said desperately. The humans who enter the Nexus change. Help us change too. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, or rather, she was suddenly closer without having moved. We've tried. Remember the volunteer program? 12 different species sent their most adaptable members. They all went insane within minutes. The Pollux volunteer existed in 17 places at once before we could pull him out. He still hasn't recovered. The human brain is unique, Chen added. We're the only species that evolved with contradictions built into our thinking. We believe in science and superstition simultaneously. We can hold multiple conflicting ideas without our minds breaking. That's not something we can teach. It's something we are. Thylix's 6 hands clenched in frustration. So humanity holds all the cards. The youngest species in the council becomes the most powerful. We don't want power, Chen said, though she knew how hollow that sounded. We want partnership. Every species brings something unique to the galaxy. The Zalani's engineering genius. The Kratham's perfect logistics. The Pollux's probability calculations. We're just adding our piece. Your piece is godlike technology, Thylix said bitterly. Before Chen could respond, alarms started blaring. Commander Park materialized on the deck, her form splitting into 3 versions of herself before consolidating. Captain, we have a problem. A big one. The Yent are here, their entire fleet. The Yent were the galaxy's mysteries. No one knew what they looked like. Their ships were perfect spheres that seemed to absorb light. They rarely communicated, and when they did, it was in riddles. But they were old, older than even the Vorthak, and they were powerful. How many ships? Chen asked. All of them. Every Yent vessel in existence. 3,000 spheres arranged in a pattern that... Captain, the pattern is doing something to local spacetime. Chen ran to the command center, Thylix and his delegation forgotten. The main screen showed the Yent fleet, and Chen's enhanced perception immediately understood what she was seeing. The ships were arranged in a formation that created a resonance with the Nexus itself. A communication came through not through their systems, but directly into the minds of everyone on the station. The Yent's voice was like the universe itself speaking. Humans, you have found the Forge. You have passed the test. But you do not understand the purpose, Chen stepped forward. Then explain it to us. Images flooded their minds. The universe billions of years ago, the architects, beings of pure thought and energy, seeing the future, seeing stagnation, seeing species reaching a certain level of development and then stopping, becoming locked in their ways. The Forge is not just a gift, the Yent spoke. It is a catalyst. Every few billion years, a species must emerge that can shake the galaxy from its patterns. That can force evolution, that can prevent stagnation. You knew, Chen said, understanding dawning. You knew about the forge all along. We were the previous guardians. 3 billion years ago we found the forge, we used it. We changed, but we became too alien, too separated from other life. We could no longer serve the purpose, so we waited for the next species. We waited for you. Dr. Tanaka was processing information at superhuman speeds. The Nexus isn't just a test. It's a filter. It ensures that only a species capable of constant change can access the forge. Yes. And now humanity must decide. Will you hoard the power? Will you become tyrants? Or will you fulfill the architect's true vision? Which is? Chen asked, evolution for all. Not through technology alone, but through challenge. Through growth. The galaxy has been static for too long. The same species, the same conflicts, the same limitations. Humanity's chaos, your adaptability, your impossible nature. You are the catalyst for the next age. The Yent fleet began to move, their spheres creating a larger pattern. Space itself rippled, and Chen saw something impossible. Dozens of other nexus points appearing across the galaxy. Each one smaller than the maelstrom, but each one a doorway to impossible technologies. We open the paths, the Yent said, but only humans can guide others through. Only humans can survive all the nexuses. This is your burden and your gift. To be the shepherds of evolution. Chen felt the weight of it. Humanity wouldn't rule the galaxy. They would serve it. They would be the guides, the ferrymen, the ones who helped other species push past their limitations. We accept, she said, not needing to consult with Earth. She knew what humanity would choose. They always chose the path of exploration, of risk, of growth. The Yent fleet dissolved into light, their physical forms no longer needed. Their final message echoed in everyone's minds. We pass the torch. Use it wisely. Chen turned to Thylix, who had watched everything in stunned silence. The offer has changed, she said. We won't just ferry your technology through the Nexus. We'll help you find your own Nexus, your own path to evolution. But it will be dangerous. Many will die. Your species will change in ways you can't predict. Thylix's 6 arms were trembling. And if we refuse? Then you stagnate. You stay as you are while the galaxy evolves around you. The Zalani engineer was quiet for a long moment. Then, we'll need to discuss this with our council. As Thylix left, Chen looked around the command center. Her crew, her friends, her fellow evolved humans were all processing what had just happened. They had come to space as explorers. They had become something more. Orders from Earth, Captain, Commander Park announced. President Rodriguez says, and I quote, well shit. Guess we better get to work. Chen laughed, and it was a very human sound despite everything she had become. Send a message to all human vessels. Tell them to prepare for the biggest job in human history. We're about to help the galaxy evolve. Torres, who had been silent in the forge for weeks, suddenly spoke through the comm. His voice was barely human anymore, but the humor in it was unmistakable. So we went from the new kids to the teachers in 6 months. That's got to be a record. That's humanity for you, Chen replied. We never do anything the normal way. As she watched human ships beginning to stream toward the new nexus points, preparing to guide other species through their own evolution, Chen felt a strange mix of pride and responsibility. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as the crazy ones willing to dive into chaos and come out changed. They were the shepherds of impossible evolution. The guides through chaos. The species that looked at reality-breaking anomalies and said, let's see what happens, and across the galaxy, everything was about to change. Outside the station, the Maelstrom Nexus pulsed with new energy. It had waited billions of years for the right species. Now it had found them. Humanity, in all their chaotic, adaptable, impossible glory,